So today's all about lighting. It's all about 4K lighting. But firstly, just to give you a bit of background, we're coming live from E3 Studios. E3 Studios is part of the Belfast Met College. And here we want to give students the information they need to succeed in industry. So we'll give them the information, but also hands-on experience, whether that's in house productions at E3 Studios or going out on the location to work on sets. So we cover sort of cinematography here, film, journalism, visual effects, animation, photography, all sorts of stuff. E3 Studios really is just a creative hub in Belfast. So firstly, let's have a look at the gear we're using today, because some people might say gear's not important, but it definitely helps. So first thing is the two studio cameras here. We're using the Blackmagic Studio Camera 4Ks. They're going into the Blackmagic Web Television 4K and then in the Web Center. So that's our sort of live stream setup. Our main camera, our cinema camera, we've gone a bit on the relatively affordable side for today. So we're sticking with the Blackmagic. We're going Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 4K. That's going into a Ninja V, which has a Connect attachment attached. We're using Sigma 35 1.5 cinema lens and small rig matte box with format 1/8 black super mist for a wee bit of diffusion in the lens. So that's our camera setup. In terms of lighting, we're using a lot of Nanlite stuff. So our first light over here is the Nanlite FS300. A great light, really powerful, good quality of light. I would say more based for studio, or at least I would use it more in the studio context. But amazing light. The next light is our main sort of key light that we'll be using today, is the Nanlite Forza 300. It's my workhorse. I use it for everything. It's really powerful. The quality of light is great, and the build quality is amazing. In the back, you'll be able to see two Nanlite Pavo tubes, Mark 1s, and then over here we've got two Nanlite Pavo tubes, Mark 2s, 30Cs. So light-wise, all Nanlite today. Let's talk about lighting. So today, all about lighting. We're talking about 4K lighting. So just to bring us up to speed, what is a key light? A key light, I suppose, is the main light or the main illumination that is lighting up your subject. So whether that subject is a person, a product, a building, doesn't really matter. Whatever that is, the key light is the main light in the scene. The light itself could be a studio light, like we're using today. It could also be a practical light. It could be the sun. So this concept of 4K lighting, or any lighting technique really, applies in any setting, whether it's studio lighting or natural lighting. So let's move in just to the concept of 4K lighting. I suppose it's pretty evident going by the name, but we want to make sure we're all clear about what it is, and then we'll look at what it looks like practically and why we use it. So if we think about the different elements within a simple scene, a simple narrative scene, we've got our camera, we've got our subject, and we've got our light source. If we think about those in layers, so how they're layered within a particular scene, if we layer it with camera, layer 1, then subject, layer 2, and light source, layer 3, then we've got effectively 4K lighting. The key light is coming from the furthest point in those layers. If on the opposite side we put layer 1 as our source light, as our key light, then we put camera, and then we put subject, that's no longer 4K lighting. And that might be a look you're going for. And it is important to say, firstly, none of this is the right way or the wrong way of doing it. It's about how do we create a feeling, how do we create a mood and a vibe that we want to create. So we need to be intentional when it comes to lighting, and having techniques like 4K lighting just in our tool belt that we can use is really important. But it's not right or wrong. For me, it looks better on almost every situation, and you might use the alternative, the opposite of it, if needed.
I hate to interrupt, there's a battery warning for the monitor on this.
Okay. There's batteries sitting on the table, so we can switch to another camera if you want to change the battery out. So we've looked at generally what it is. Let's sort of set up for the opposite of it, just so we can see from the start what does it look like if we set up the opposite of far key lighting. So we're going to shift in fact I'll ask Hannah to come in here, our lovely model, who also happens to study photography and videography. So I'm going to move my light round. So our light is now in front, and Martina on the main light is going to come forward. So if we cut the main light, or sorry, the main camera here, just so we can see what that's looking like. Okay, so that is not far key lighting. That's not necessarily bad lighting. In fact, I will just make sure our exposure is okay. So just get my meter out here. Okay, we're metering at 1.4. Okay, if you just get, yeah, perfect. Okay, so not bad lighting, but not what we're looking at today. And when we look at what practically far key lighting is, you'll notice a massive difference. So sort of keep this in your minds. Keep Hannah's face in your minds when we're looking at the next setup. So that is not far key lighting. Again, not necessarily wrong, but not what we're going for. So I'm just going to shift the light. Hannah can stay where she is. And just to say, when it comes to moving your C-stands or using your C-stands, the weight's always over the longest leg. Always move the sort of light or whatever it is on the C-stand up from the top. So use the top knuckle first and then work your way down. If it's got an arm, make sure the knuckle is to the right so that if it falls, it sort of tightens rather than loosens. You know this stuff. Okay, so we've got our camera, we've got our light. Cool. So Hannah, if you look a wee bit to your left and up, and Martina, if you come in a touch more, and then get your focus. Okay, perfect. So let's remember back to our first image, which was the opposite. And now look at this image. What do we notice? Well, I'll tell you what you should notice. We notice that there's more shadow. The whole face is not evenly lit. There's light on the far side, and there's shadow on the near side of Hannah's face. And to me, this might be a preference thing, but to me that looks better. Now, we haven't fine-tuned exposure. We haven't done anything with the background. We don't have any set here. It's literally plain background. But immediately as we look at this image, we've got interest, at least on the face, on our main subject, which is the main thing. So immediately you can sort of see the difference. We can go for flat lighting, or we can go for depth and interest, and that's what far lighting gets you. It gives you interest, and it gives you depth in your image. It's important to remember that when we're dealing with cinematography, we're dealing with a world that's 3D, but we're putting that onto a 2D. We're recording that in 2D, and we're viewing it in 2D, so we need to be able to create depth and interest in our frame. A lot of that's down to set design, but a massive part is lighting and how we light. So if you want a flat image, if you want a feeling of like you just don't, like there's nothing, nobody should care about this image, go flat. Make it all the same level, whether that's a bright or dark level. But yeah, I think I've sort of got that point across. We want shadow in our image, so we can think about cinematography as shape and shadow rather than shape and light. Okay, so we're going to look at a reference image and just try and replicate that a wee bit, just to hone in a wee bit more on what far key lighting is. I'm just going to check. Firstly, we all good with cameras? Deck? Oh yeah, yeah. So with if we're looking at the reference image, we can see we've got our subject. Camera's obviously in front of the subject, and we've got our sort of motivated key light, which is our window light. Now, something to say, I suppose, about the setup of this particular shot is that we're looking at the window. The key light wouldn't be coming through that particular part of the window. So we've got window there. I would imagine further up towards camera, there's more window, and that's the part of the window that we're looking through, or that we're lighting through. So we don't want to light through the part of the window that we can see because it'll blow out. Another way they've created sort of depth in this image is that they're sort of shooting into the L of the room. So you've got the window sort of diagonally down the right side, the wall diagonally down the left side, and that just creates a feeling of depth. But they've also got the set design, the different colours and shapes and textures, so everything's sort of going towards creating a feeling of interest and depth. So on to the actual lighting of the subject. As I said, it's being keyed almost from the side, so you've got this sort of line down the centre of his face. He's looking up into it, so you can see the catch light or the eye light in his eye. Again, that sort of creates a bit of interest, and without that it might look a bit flatter. So we do have it sort of sidey, but we do have a bit of carryover onto the other side of his face. So what we'll do firstly is, if we come back to the back to the main light, we'll try and set this up. So I'm going to firstly, you could do this multiple ways. So I could shift the light round and try and get the key light sort of coming sidey but wrapping around a wee bit. So we can do that by moving it in closer, so it'll wrap around her face. And again, we'll just meet her, because we'll move the light closer, it's going to get more intense. We need to compensate for that. So that's a 4. Okay. Okay, cool. And Martina, if you just move it a bit closer, just get that a bit tighter. And Hannah, if you look off towards in between camera and light there. Yeah, perfect. So you've got that eye light in there already. Sometimes you need to add that in, or with a secondary light, like a wee aperture MC or something on top of the camera. But for now, our key light, because Hannah's looking at the same side as the key, then we're getting that by default. So we've got our sidey light, and it is coming sort of a bit round on the far side, but I think it's too much. So we're going to come a bit more back. Cool. So we're being keyed from the far side. We've got our sort of line down the centre of the face. We've got our shadow. Martina, if you move towards the light a wee bit and shoot, so sort of shift right to your right, yeah. Cool. Awesome. Okay, so we have the shape. We've got the wee sort of Rembrandt light under the eye, and that's good. Softness is something to think about. If we go back to the reference image there, it's a bit harder. It's not as... do we need to swap, or no. Are you good? Yeah, it's a bit harder. So what I'm going to do is going to take the diffusion off, or at least the diffusion that we currently have on. And Aaron, just give me a shout if there's any questions coming. I'm going to go with the, so with the non-light Forza, I've got a Fresnel lens. The Fresnel lens is, there's glass in front of it, and it allows you to flood and spot your light. So I can spot it or I can flood it, and it goes from 45 degrees. This particular one goes 45 degrees to 20 degrees spot. It intensifies the light as well, but it gives us more control. And there's barn doors with it as well. But for now, I'm just going to get some shape. So Martina, if you can, if you go to the opposite side, so we're going to shoot in the shadow. We're also going to meter again, because as I said, more intense. And then just round a wee bit more, so if you, yeah. Good. Okay, cool. Okay, and if you look up a wee touch, Hannah. Awesome. And then if we go back to the reference. Okay, back to main camera. Hannah, if you look a wee bit more towards camera and down, but your eyes up. So if you look straight, but your eyes up a wee touch. Or sorry, head straight, eyes up. Okay, cool. So we've got that sort of sidey light. We need to carry the light across a wee bit here. So I'm going to bring in another light, and ideally this would be super diffused, but we're just going to see what we can do. And the idea here is to act almost like it is the key light, so that it shouldn't feel like there's two lights coming in here. It should just feel like the key light is being pushed across a wee bit. Or carried around. So generally what I like to do in terms of fill, to get this particular look, I don't like fill being sort of key light fill on the opposite side. It's really good for the key light to be the key light, and then if you need fill, to have it almost like an extension of the key light, so same side as key but further around, and a lot sort of dimmer, so it doesn't feel like you're adding another light in. It just feels like for some reason the key light is bigger and extending around a wee bit more. So that might be a wee bit too much on the extension. I'll bump it up a bit more. Okay, so we're getting there. Probably too carrying around too much. And as you can tell, the sort of putting together a lighting setup, the nuance is where the skill comes in. Trying to get it the way you want it takes a while. You got to play with it. You got to test it. Okay, cool. So I think we're pretty much there. If we go back to the reference, it's a bit hotter. His key light's a bit hotter. But we've got the idea, at least, that the far key light, we've got that interest. So we're shooting from shadow side. We're shooting into the shadow. The light on the face is on the far side. The key light is the last thing in the sort of layers that we were talking about. Concept, I think, we've sort of beat it to death a wee bit about the idea of far key lighting. Hopefully that was helpful. Next live streams will go a bit smoother, I hope, with audio and delay and all that sort of stuff. Thank you for watching, sticking with us. Again,